And so, Dr. Yasmine, welcome to Black Authors Matter TV. And congratulations on being a finalist in this year's Book Awards process, and also being in the inaugural edition of the Children's Book Box. So we are very excited about this new project, and we're putting it out there. You'll if you haven't seen it on social media, our promotional video, you'll see it. So because we are putting a lot of energy and resources behind promoting the book box. So, Dr. Yasmine, welcome to the show. And just, do you have a copy of your book, the one that you made the finalist list with?
And I have my sticker on there too. So,
well, first of all, I love the sticker, but let's just talk about how vibrant that illustration is. Did you know the illustrator, or did you just look up on someone who was able to make your characters come alive?
Believe it or not, my husband dabbles a little bit in a lot of multimedia things. He does a lot. He does photography, videography, editing. He does most of my video content editing and all of that stuff. And so he started doing some, photoshopping and all of that stuff. And he figured out a way to help me illustrate this book, which is, I like to say, it's a passion project for our family. So I take the lead in speaking about the book, but it was really written by my husband, myself, and I would say inspired by my two sons. So it's a family book. But yes, to answer your question about the illustrations, yes, we did it. We designed it ourselves.
That is beautiful. Congratulations on that. And it's good to have the illustrator be in the family.
It is. If you have those skills, you can at your fingertips. It's good for the family to work together on projects.
I agree. Now, the children on the cover, are those children inspired by real children?
Yes. So this one here, so the book is, it says on the bottom here, hopefully you guys can see it, written by Jackson Gustav and Titan Gustav. So those are my two sons. As well as myself, Dr. Yasmine Daniels Gustav, and Kendi Gustav, that's my husband. And so this little guy is the baby. They're slightly older in the book than they are now, and I'll show you a picture of them, which is in the book in a second. But he's one, his name's Titan, and he is 5 years old, and this is Jackson. And so he's kind of like the ringleader, the mischief starter, but we won't get into that. Here's an actual photo. If you look a little bit closely, it's a little blurry on Zoom. Here's the baby, and here's Jackson, my husband, and here I am. So you can see they very closely resemble, sort of like a caricature, the book does of them. And it's really nice because when Jackson finally saw the book, he's obviously a lot more vocal than the baby, the 1-year-old. He's like, "Mommy, that's me." And I was like, it really warmed our hearts to know that we were able to capture that in the book, because that's essentially what we wanted to do. And I mean, when talking about the book, you'll see, that's really what the message is in the book.
Well, you are, let's get a little bit into your background, and then we're going to talk about the book box toward the end of the interview. But the title of your book is called, and you say what the title is.
It's called Black and Brown Are Beautiful Crayons Too. And my son Jackson, the older one over here, he loves to say it like this. He'll say, "Black and brown are beautiful crayons too," and he like sings it. I don't know, but I think that's something kids like to do. That's how things stick with them, and that's how they remember. So oftentimes when I tell people the book in my head, I'm actually singing it, but I read it to you. So
I don't know how old you are, but I will say that I'm excited about the fact that your children are so excited about the colors black and brown, because growing up, we talked a little earlier with another one of the guests, we were talking about growing up in the 80s, and growing up for me in the 70s and 80s, we did not always think black and brown were beautiful crayons in the box. We thought that those were the ugly colors, the colors that you use if you wanted to trace something, or if you wanted to maybe draw some wood or something ugly. We didn't think of them as beautiful colors. And growing up, throughout the years, we've come to love the colors black and brown. So I love the fact that your children already have that inside of them, that those are beautiful colors now.
Yeah, and they were definitely inspired by that. My sons, they love to color as any kid does. And
Yes.
so the idea of the book itself actually stemmed from really a political standpoint, more like a personal stance. And so my husband and I, we struggled a lot through the past, I
Mhm.
would say maybe the past 3 years, with all of sort of like the political uproar on, black and brown men being shot, and, just being honestly extremely worried about raising black boys in America. I mean, I'll just be very frank. And so I remember putting them to sleep, and this is before even the baby was born, because my baby's 1 year, so he was born last year. So with the older one, I remember during the times of, George Floyd, I would be putting him to sleep, just like shivering, like, oh my God, I can't even imagine what moms are going through, other moms are going through right
Mhm.
now. We've had several conversations about how we would even talk to our sons, our
Yes.
son, then, one son
Mothers
grew
of
up without
black boys were afraid. They were
praying.
afraid of their sons leaving the house and not coming back.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, I have a very good friend who's, she's my sorority sister, but she's a good friend. And she had a teenage son. And I'm telling you, she was afraid for him to leave the house because of what was going on. There's so many black boys being killed.
yeah. Yep, and that's exactly how we felt. And we thought, well, he's so young. Do we start the conversation now? When is it an appropriate time to talk to him about it? And
Mhm.
again, it's before the baby came along. And then the baby came along, we're like, okay, wait, now we have 2 boys. We have like double the stakes out there,
Yes.
we're sent out into the world. That's our just like our heart and soul. And so we thought, okay, well, my education is my background is education. So I'm an educator as well. I'm a chemist. I teach chemistry. I mentor students. And so I do a lot to sort of, nurture students and meet them where they're at, which is one of the, tools that we like to do as educators. And so I thought to myself, okay, maybe we can do that in parenting too. So where are they right now? They like to be creative. They like to color. They like to use crayons. They like to use their hands and use visual cues, things of that nature. So I thought, okay, what better way would it be than to use crayons to teach them about, appreciating their beauty, their inner beauty, things like their skin, without making it super political. Because
Yeah.
again, they may not be quite ready to have that conversation. And it's not necessarily a conversation we're trying to evade or, not bring up at some point, but we want to slowly and gradually ease them into the idea of understanding that regardless of how the world sees you, understand that you are beautiful, you are special, you are important, and you have value. And that's really the essence of the book and what we're trying to sort of build around them. And so we want to do that, and create that narrative for them before they start to see a different narrative that's painted for them out there in the world, especially with the 5-year-old starting school now, kindergarten. It was a tough pill to swallow, but yeah, he's already bringing back all these different ideas from, different people that he's meeting. So it's really important for us to start that in the household.
I agree.
Beautiful.
Now you have a PhD in chemistry, or normally a PhD is more specific than just general chemistry, but um, what that's, I'm sure in your profession, you don't meet people that look like you, women, every single day. I'll just put it like that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So I do have a PhD in chemistry. I started out working as a lab chemist, a bench chemist. So I did, typical experiments, mixing things in test tubes and all of that stuff. And it was great. And you're right. A lot of the labs and places that I worked, there were not many people who looked like me. In fact, I relied heavily on mentors and finding people who looked like me. And so when you typically, and this is a message I think to anyone who's looking, who may be feeling the same way as I did, when you're in a position where you don't feel like you belong, or there may not be other people who look like you take it upon yourself and actively seek out a mentor, because it changes the game, honestly. And I think it really solidified for me my sense of belonging in what I was doing. It helped me navigate certain difficult scenarios. And a lot of the times, and when I say mentor, for me, that meant someone who actually had gone through what I went through, and could help me navigate that same path. And it was amazing for me. Like I said, it was definitely life changing. I was able to deal with very difficult situations. Even today, in the role that I play now, sometimes I'm skeptical. I have imposter syndrome, and I don't know if I quite belong, because there are not people who look like me in the work that I do today still, even after having done it for so long. So
Yeah,
you're absolutely
imposter
right.
syndrome is real. It
Really.
really is. And often we think that people see us and they don't really they're seeing us, but they're seeing the great part of us. And we're thinking that they see that maybe we shouldn't be here in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's definitely, there's that voice in my head sometimes that I think to myself, and I have, like I said, amazing mentors who remind me sometimes and ground me and say, Yasmin, on paper, you have everything it takes. Stop questioning that. You've done the work, you've put in the time, you've done the work. Just, hit the ground running, and you're unstoppable. And I mean, I say this and I share this with you guys, not to sort of brag about anything, but sometimes it really takes that person looking at you from the outside to remind you and reassure you that no, you really are capable of being and sitting in that chair at that table next to those
Right.
people who are doing those things. And even with a PhD in chemistry and doing all these sort of amazing and great things, I still feel like it's so important to reach back into my community and mentor and help other people coming behind me, because I know how much value it had for me, or it continues to have for me. And so without jumping the gun, I don't know what your next question will be, but I mentor Black and Brown girls specifically. And I don't have girls as my daughters, but I feel like those girls in my program are my kids. And everything they do, their moms share, I share with their moms, and their moms share equally with me when they do successful things in school. And I'm so proud of them. And it makes me feel such a sense of accomplishment, knowing that there are little girls who are looking up to me and feel empowered, knowing that they could do things that I'm doing, and that I'm using my platform or my resources or my network to give back to them, in a way that, I felt
And
like it's
and
just
this is
important.
why she's called the classy chemist.
Yeah. Well, I have a niece who has a PhD in botany and botanical
Oh,
sciences.
wow.
She's a professor, and so she just took right to it. But in her world, she's the only Black female most of the
Sure.
time, and sometimes the only Black person, so male or female. So you have other compatriots out there that are experiencing it, but thankfully you all are out here making a difference, being an example for other people to follow, because generations before, all we have to do is go back maybe 1-2 generations. We didn't have scientists. They had the women, in fact, the women from Hidden Figures, they were in the area that I grew up in, and I didn't know about them. I never heard of them. At the time, I didn't know about them until the movie, and then the book, and then the movie, because
That is so true, because
so behind the
as
scenes.
much as I was trying to learn about history, not in school, because in school we learn about the same three people. But as I got older and I was learning about history, I knew nothing about these women until the movie came out. It's
Mhm.
amazing how much of our history is kept from us, hidden from us, or maybe just not talked about because people didn't think it was a big enough deal.
Yeah. Now I had really great history. I took Black history in high school, a whole year of it. We had a textbook, and Mr. Tuberville was my teacher. I remember my teacher's name. But even in elementary school, my teachers, they went out of their way to make sure that we didn't have a textbook, but they went out of their way to make sure we knew our history and who we were. And they had more latitude then. The state, it wasn't telling them everything they couldn't say. So they really went out of their way to make sure that we knew who we were. And so we have to, sometimes teachers and parents, they have to do things that are not necessarily conventional to get the messages out. And that's what you've done with your book.
Yeah, I like to think of it as almost a love letter to my boys. So, growing up, they can read it over and over. And there are certain parts of the book where they can recite, even sort of like affirmations, to help them to just, continue to believe in themselves and continue to believe that, like I said, they have value in society.
Right. And then your book was a finalist in 2 categories for the awards. And I will say the motivational category that you were a finalist in was one of the biggest categories in terms of the volume of submissions. So we had to come up with the top 5 out of about 50 books. So your book made the cut out of 50 books to the top 5. And
I saw the announcement. I saw being a finalist in one category, and then I kept looking and I said, oh my goodness, 2 categories.
Yeah, it's just an amazing, the illustrations really make the book, but and the subject matter they go hand in hand. The illustrations are extremely important, and the theme of the book, the theme, some books don't have a strong theme. This book, the title was self-explanatory, and then the illustrations were just spot on and so vibrant, like Rhonda said. So another thing I wanted to talk about is when we reached out to you about the children's book box. Why did you decide to participate, and what was your first reaction to the idea?
Well, first of all, I had never had anyone reach out to me before about joining a subscription box. I was thrilled by that. I felt like I was part of an elite group or something. So that was nice. So thank you for including me. But I also think that, it makes so much sense to have a subscription box with these types of books for kids, and, providing it to your subscribers and rotating, different books through. As an author, I feel like this is one of the best ways to get your book in front of an audience who you may not necessarily have an opportunity to connect with. So kudos to you guys for coming up with this idea, and for reaching out to the authors to include them in the the inaugural subscription box. And I really do hope, and I can definitely foresee this being a very successful venture. So I'm excited to be a part of it. Definitely have been sharing it with family and friends, and I plan to put together lots of different clips and things, with my social media. It's been, social media, as you guys probably already know, it's a lot of work putting together.
It absolutely is.
Yes.
I try to pace myself, but I'm definitely in support of the subscription box 100%. And I'm excited for it. And I think, it'll definitely be well received.
So do you have another book you're working on now, or or was this like a one-time project?
So this isn't my first book. If you guys see in the background, let's see, this way, it's a little hard to see, but my very first.
On the wall?
Yeah, on the wall.
Okay.
My very first book was this one, and it's pictured on the wall, but I'll show you closer. So it's called Building My Self-Esteem in Science. So this little girl here is supposed to be me. She kind of has a slight resemblance to me if you look closely. And so it's about, so again, I have a science background. And so like you sort of identified, Gwen, there weren't many people who I felt looked like me navigating that path or taking that path. And so I thought it was really important to show kids what it's like going through high school, being somewhat good at science, but also having doubts. And so in this story, this main character's friends, they all sort of help her to give her a boost in her confidence. And so they do something really special for her at the end of the book that helps her to really get excited about being sort of a STEM person, a science person. It's a very fun story. It has like lots of cool things that kids are into, like they go to parties and they have their science projects, and it also has very cool illustrations. And I'll just show you. I know this is not the topic, but here's a really cool, science fair that they're at. They have the signature volcano.
Volcano. Mhm.
Right, everybody does the
Everybody
volcano for
does
their
the
science
volcano.
project.
That was another book. And I mentioned to you guys that I also mentor Black and Brown girls. I have a program called Pigtails and Pajamas.
Oh,
It started out during sort of the pandemic and COVID when everything moved to being virtual. And so I used to always do a lot of outreach, like attending, girls talks and like, things like sit on women's panels and talk to a lot of young girls. And so that was all halted during COVID. So I started to think of ways that I could still connect with young girls and just, continue to pour into them. So I figured out that I wanted to create my own program called Pigtails and Pajamas. And the reason that I called it that was because we were sitting in our own homes, in the comfort of our homes, behind screens, in our pajamas. And I wanted it to be the most comfortable setting. So I said, let's just throw our hair in pigtails. And I just thought, oh, why don't I just call this Pigtails and Pajamas? We'll grab our popcorn, we'll chat like, like the girls like to say, this feels like Babysitters Club, or like, they'll say like, it feels like a mini sorority. And that's really what it's like. And so we meet, every other Friday when we're in sort of in session. Right now we're on a break. We haven't started again yet, but I say all that to say we last session we had in the spring, we worked on how you become an author. So I, like I said, like to use my own resources and pour into other young girls coming after me. So I navigated the process of being an author, how I published a book. And so I used a lot of those resources that I gathered and I started pouring it back into the girls, and I helped them publish a book as a group. And so that's the book, my latest book, I should say, that we published together. It's called, they came up with the title themselves. So it's called A Great Book for Great Girls. It's inspirational short stories by the Pigtails and Pajamas girls. And believe it or not, the characters here, so I used a different illustrator. My husband did not illustrate this one.
Okay.
But the characters here were actually modeled after the actual girls who are in the program. And
well, they are cute.
They are cute.
awesome. These are the
And their
actual
hair's
girls.
cute.
Look at that. They look almost exactly
Oh,
like the
Yes.
yeah.
that's
So
great.
it was awesome for them to see themselves on a book cover, and that really it made my whole year to be able to give that to them. And they all have their books, and they have copies that they're selling, and they're using those funds to fund back to school items, backpacks, supplies. And so it was nice, really amazing for me to be able to help them to do that. So that's my latest project. So
Well,
I've
that's
been busy.
wonderful. And children are funny in that they don't want to be the only one doing something, like, and that's what holds a lot of kids back from being in STEM. They don't want to be the only one. And then sometimes kids who are either jealous or just don't get it, will tease them, but I tell them nerds run things. Nerds rule the world. That's who
It's
ends up
true.
running
Yeah,
the
but
world, making the
kids
decisions.
don't understand that.
They don't. They
As we
don't.
get older, we realize that the nerds
Yeah.
are the ones who are running the world. But when
Right.
we're kids and we're the nerd, there are always things that we're getting made fun of.
Yeah, it can be
Yeah.
lonely sometimes.
Yeah, but they enjoy doing it, as you said, as a group.
Yes.
They love having their book together. We did a small little group trip in the summer where they were able to meet and exchange autographs, and it's such a fun experience for them. So I'm so proud of them.
Well,
Well,
Yasmine, tell people how they can get your
Yeah.
book before we and I think normally Rhonda puts the information in the chat.
Yeah, I
so
did
can-
put the link. I did put the link in the chat for anyone who wants to order these books. And I wanted to share with you. Janice Thomas said that this is a wonderful book. Mary Evans said that you are an inspiration. So people are your message is resonating with a lot of readers. So that's a great thing.
Thank you. Yes, and thank you for sharing the links in the chat, and to all of the viewers. I appreciate your wonderful feedback. So the book can be found on most major book platforms. So Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Walmart. I also have my website. So I'm also known as the Classic Chemist. So If you go to www.classychemist.com, you'll find a lot of information about me. You can put the /shop and it'll show you all of my books where you can purchase them. I have autographed copies available. So if you want those, please feel free to reach out that way. And you can find me on most major social media platforms also.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
and it's also in the inaugural edition of the Black Authors Matter Children's Book Box. So congratulations on that and continued success with all of your work.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys inviting me. I had such a good time talking to you both.
Well, thank you for being a part of the show. We appreciate you sharing your story with us, and we want to make sure that we stay in touch. So, just reach out, stay in touch with us.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.